What's some weird creepy stuff in the Bible that most people don't know about? Cain's wife. Not creepy, but where did she come from? Adam and Eve were the first people on earth. They had Cain and Abel. Cain gets jealous of Abel because God favored him and kills Abel. So Cain gets banished by God into the wilderness. He then meets a woman and starts a family. Where did this chick come from? My understanding is that his parents were the only humans on earth at that point. David took his men with him and went out and killed 200 Philistines and brought back their foreskins. They counted out the full number to the king so that David might become the king's son-in-law. Then Saul gave him his daughter Michal in marriage. 1 Samuel 18:27. David traded his daughter for a pile of foreskins. A pile. The curse of Ham. Basically, Noah got really drunk one time and ended up passed out and naked. Ham then came in and saw him naked. He told his two other brothers, Shem and Japheth, about it, who then covered up Noah while averting their eyes. Apparently Ham seeing his father naked is really bad, so there must be a punishment. But Ham isn't the one who gets punished. Instead, Noah curses one of Ham's sons, Canaan, and only Canaan. His brothers Cush, Mizraim, and Phut aren't punished, and he and his descendants must be slaves of Shem and his descendants. The original purpose of this tale was probably to justify the subjugation of the Canaanites, because one of their ancestors once seeing his father's junk is really bad. However, the dumbest thing about this story is that up to the 19th century, people were using the curse of Ham as justification for the enslavement of black people. God tells Abraham to sacrifice his son. Then God said, "Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you." Early the next morning Abraham got up and loaded his donkey. He took with him two of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. On the third day Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servants, "Stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship and then we will come back to you." Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the two of them went on together, Isaac spoke up and said to his father Abraham, "Father?" "Yes, my son?" Abraham replied, "The fire and wood are here." Isaac said, "But where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham answered, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." And the two of them went on together. When they reached the place God had told him about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar, on top of the wood. Then he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. 11 But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, "Abraham! Abraham!" "Here I am," he replied. 12 Do not lay a hand on the boy, he said. "Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." Dr. God, sacrifice your son. Abraham, okay. God, prank bro. In patriarchal societies of the ancient Near East, the uninterrupted passing on of land and property from father to son was extremely important. It was so important that the Mosaic Law outlined the requirements for levirate marriage. If a married man died childless, his brother, or another family member, was obliged to marry the widow and sire a son who could inherit the dead man's property and carry on the man's name. Deuteronomy 25:5-10. The practice of levirate marriage was understood and accepted by the Israelites far earlier than the giving of the law, and we have an example of it in Genesis 38. That's where we find the story of Onan and his Onanism. Judah's son Ur was killed by God for his evil lifestyle, and, since Ur had not fathered a son, Ur's wife, Tamar, followed the tradition of levirate marriage and married his next oldest brother, Onan. Onan was willing to have sex with Tamar, but he wasn't willing to sire a son with her, a son who would not legally be his and who would take away his chance of inheriting his dead brother's property. So, in the midst of sexual relations with Tamar, Onan withdrew and spilled his semen on the ground, Genesis 38:9. In this way Onan ensured he would not provide a child to Tamar, even though it was his duty to do so, verse 8. Genesis 38:10 says, "What he did was wicked in the Lord's sight, so the Lord put him to death also." 50 And when Jesus had cried out again in a loud voice, he gave up his spirit. 51 At that moment the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook and the rocks split. 52 The tombs broke open and the bodies of many holy people who had died were raised to life. 53 They came out of the tombs, and after Jesus' resurrection they went into the holy city and appeared to many people. So Jesus brought a zombie apocalypse. Thanks Jesus. Okay, so here's my favorite story from the Bible, Elisha and the two bears. Elisha was a bald guy who was friends with God. One day he was going up a hill on his way to Bethel, and he was all shiny and sweaty with the effort. So a group of kids nearby started making fun of him. Go up, bald head. Go up, bald head. Elisha didn't like this, so he cursed them in the name of God. So, naturally, as a very proportional reaction, God sent two bears who came out of the woods and fucking tore 42 of the kids to shreds. Don't tease God's friends, kids, or you will fucking die. The story of Job. This guy pretty much has it all: crops, cattle, beautiful wife and kids, praises God every day for his great life. Then one day Satan comes up to God and bet him that he'll stop worshipping God if he takes it all away from him. God takes the bet, kills Job's cattle, crops, burns his house down, kills all his kids and wives. The rest of the village thinks he's cursed and shuns him, then he gets turned into a leper by God. All just to prove a point to Satan. Judges 19 NRSV 22 While they were enjoying themselves, the men of the city, a perverse lot, surrounded the house, and started pounding on the door. They said to the old man, the master of the house, "Bring out the man who came into your house, so that we may have intercourse with him." 23 And the man, the master of the house, went out to them and said to them, "No, my brothers, do not act so wickedly. Since this man is my guest, do not do this vile thing." 24 Here are my virgin daughter and his concubine, let me bring them out now. Ravish them and do whatever you want to them, but against this man do not do such a vile thing. 25 But the men would not listen to him. So the man seized his concubine, and put her out to them. They wantonly raped her, and abused her all through the night until the morning. And as the dawn began to break, they let her go. 26 As morning appeared, the woman came and fell down at the door of the man's house where her master was, until it was light. 27 In the morning her master got up, opened the doors of the house, and when he went out to go on his way, there was his concubine lying at the door of the house, with her hands on the threshold. 28 Get up, he said to her, we are going. But there was no answer. Then he put her on the donkey, and the man set out for his home. 29 When he had entered his house, he took a knife, and grasping his concubine he cut her into 12 pieces, limb by limb, and sent her throughout all the territory of Israel. 30 Then he commanded the men whom he sent, saying, Thus shall you say to all the Israelites, Has such a thing ever happened since the day that the Israelites came up from the land of Egypt until this day? Consider it, take counsel, and speak out. Thomas Paine called Moses a detestable villain and cited Numbers 31:13-18, which describes the Midian War, as an example. Moses, Eleazar the priest and all the leaders of the community went to meet them outside the camp. Moses was angry with the officers of the army, the commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds, who returned from the battle. Have you allowed all the women to live? He asked them. They were the ones who followed Balaam's advice and enticed the Israelites to be unfaithful to the Lord in the Peor incident, so that a plague struck the Lord's people. Now kill all the boys. And kill every woman who has slept with a man, but save for yourselves every girl who has never slept with a man. Lot's daughters. After Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed, his two daughters thought they were the only ones left alive on earth. So 2 nights in a row they got their dad drunk and raped him so they would get pregnant and repopulate the earth, I guess. Then there was a guy that God struck down because he ejaculated on the floor rather than knock up his dead brother's wife. It was custom that if your brother didn't have any children before he died, it was his brother's duty to take care of the deceased brother's wife and raise children in his name to continue the deceased brother's line. There's also another story where a dude got hit by a rock that some lady threw off a tower he was attacking. He then asked his buddy to stab him before he bled out so people wouldn't say a woman killed him. That one's no so much messed up as it is funny. But the Old Testament is filled with some interesting stuff. The rules for war in Deuteronomy chapter 20. If they surrender, slavery for all. If they resist, kill all men. Women and children are literally referred to as plunder. But wait. There's more. For cities within Palestine, leave alive nothing that breathes. It literally lists peoples for genociding. Here's something more weird than creepy. How many times have you heard the 12 tribes of Israel? Let's count them. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Manasseh, Ephraim. Those are the 12 tribes of Israel. The land of Israel was divided into 12 sections. Levi, an actual tribe, didn't get a piece. They were told to be priests and live everywhere in Israel. Jacob had 12 sons. But Manasseh and Ephraim were his grandsons. Joseph didn't get a tribe but his 2 sons each did. That makes 13 legitimate tribes of Israel.